Hello, everyone. This is Robert, one of your adult reference librarians at the Lindenhurst Memorial Library. Today I thought I would make a video showing how to access Ancestry in conjunction with the blogs I've been posting on the library's blog um, with genealogical research. So I'm going to start by showing you where you can access Ancestry, the database, the most popular database for genealogical research. Um, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the library website at lindenhurstlibrary.org, and then under there you're going to go on the Research tab. You're going to click it, and then you're going to scroll down to where it lists genealogy, and it shows Ancestry right here as the link. Normally, you would only be able to access the library edition, which is different from the standard that you would normally, like if you have a personal account on Ancestry, which I recommend everyone should. It's free. They have a free version. You just sign up for an account. Um, the library edition gives you access to premium content that you would normally have to pay for. Um, and normally we would you would only have access to uh, the the library edition while on a computer in the library. But due to the current situation we're in, we have extended it to remote use from your home. So instead of clicking this link, you're going to move over and click this link, use this link from home, and it's going to take you to here. I already logged on, but it'll just ask you for your library card credentials, like your number, username, etc. Uh, so, um, some basics about it. I explained that this lets you allows you to access like premium content, which most of the time it's about viewing the documents. You necessarily wouldn't be able to view. Uh, I'm going to show you on my personal account right here. You necessarily wouldn't be able to view everything that you look up. It won't show pictures of things. Show you an example because I did have a paid account for a long time, but I kind of reached a stopping point with my research, and I decided that I didn't really want to keep spending money on it if I wasn't going to be using it that often. Um, so it'll show you this, like these are the documents. So I can't view that document, even though I had already viewed it. I can't view it because I am not a premium member anymore. But uh, the library edition allows you, you can see like a little picture of the document, census. The library allows you to search for documents. So you're going to hit the search button, and then you're just depending on what you want to search for. It's best if you're just beginning. It's best to just search for all categories, unless you're literally looking for something very specific, like a birth certificate or death certificate or something. Um, so when I started using Ancestry during my college coursework for a genealogy course I took, we had a final project, which was to develop a biography of an ancestor of ours in our family tree. And it had to be someone that died before we were born. So I ended up I looked through a few I kind of did a little minor research into who I would make this biography about, and I landed on my maternal grandmother's father, my great grandfather, who died some 20 years before I was born. His name is William Edward. It's his first and middle name, and his last name is Shacklady. So when you're searching for what you're searching for is people, specifically. You want to be as detailed as possible. You want to have as much information before you start. Um, Before you start most of your searches. It gives you options to add a bunch of stuff. You can add, like, to narrow it down, because this is honestly a very, very common name. Some people may not have as much of an issue, but William Edward is incredibly common name, obviously. Shack Lady is not as common as someone named William, but it still is pretty common when looking at the record. What I found when looking at records. So yeah, it gives you a bunch of options, like, places your ancestors might have lived. He was born in Wales. I know from my grandmother, she's still alive, and I got a lot of information from her. He lived in Liverpool for a long time, and then he eventually moved over here after World War I, which he served in, and started a family in Jamaica, Queens, and then came out to Long Island. Um, I'm just gonna input some information like that, stuff that you would normally think you should know. He was born in 1899. Um, and then this right here gives you an option of looking at records that might list something as 1888, 1898. I'm sorry. Give or take a year, give or take 2 years. Some things might not be incredibly accurate. Even the document might actually show that what the record shows is the correct birth year of someone, but the ancestry record might be different, like the transcribed record that they'll show you. I'll leave it as exact, because I know, in terms of examples that I'll look for. Um, Places that he lived, I will put Liverpool, Lancashire, England. Um, Yeah, I mean, just, there's options to add family members. Like, his father was William Webster Shacklady, his mother. Siblings, he had a few. A spouse, Margaret. Um, my great grandmother, and children, obviously my grandmother and her siblings. You can choose to have that gender, race, nationality. All these things are just to help narrow down these records that you're going to search through. Because trust me, there are a lot of records to go through. It'll come up with thousands of records, and a lot of it is duplicated. A lot of it's just wrong. It's just someone else. Just someone that could literally have a very similar name, born around the same time. Um, and even these filters. So I just click search. These filters on the left show you how broad and exact the records will show. So the William Edward, the first and middle name, is very broad listed by default, and then you can look at the records. Like, there's someone named James there. That's obviously not him, even though he was born in 1899. Um, so the first record that pops up, I know for a fact is him. It is a New York passenger and cruise list, Castle Garden, Ellis Island. That's where many immigrants came in during that time. Uh, this is the record that Ancestry transcribes. Name, like, the information about the document, that the primary source that they have on file. So it shows that he was born in Rhyadar, which is in Radnorshire, Wales. Um, and it gives an estimate of the birth date. It was 1899. It was in September. Um, and it just shows, like, it's a passenger document, so it's going to show when he arrived, and that was November 20th, 1928. Age, gender, all that kind of stuff. So we can look at the actual document thanks to the library edition of Ancestry, and you're going to see him up top here, right up top. He just happens to be number one, honestly. Um, Sometimes it'll be, like, in the middle down here or whatever. You have to, like, kind of like scroll through these some of these records. Um, I'll go through a couple of the other records. But and for future reference, I will be explaining the different kinds of records there are. This is just kind of like to show everyone how they can search through documents. How to use Ancestry. But I'll go into the different kinds of records there are, like passenger lists on ships, census records, death records, birth records, marriage records, all those vital records. Um, so this is a so yeah, so that he is the first one on the list, and then it shows his wife, Ellen Margaret. That is my great grandmother. Um, my grandmother tells me she went by Margaret a lot. And you can see all different kinds of information that's on this record, like age is right here, 29, she's 25, he's 29. What their occupation was. He was a seaman, and she was a housewife. He was a seaman. He actually worked on the ship uh, after he served in World War One, and he actually moved his family. It's very common, very common for people just to be picked up by ships to work. They needed the manpower, and he just happened to uh, find working on passenger ships that would go back and forth between England and the United States. Um, and in the meantime, so in the 20s, that's exactly what he was doing, and he actually moved his entire family, his parents and all his siblings, um, through while working on the ship. He moved them to New York from England and Liverpool. Um, I'm just showing different things that's on this record. Uh, Last permanent residence was in Liverpool, as you can see. Ryder, Wales. My great grandmother was born in around Liverpool in that area. But yeah, so that is just one example of record. They show you sources, like where the information came from and stuff. Um, when you're doing genealogical research, you definitely want to make sure when you put down information that you actually cite correctly. There's I briefly went over in my previous blog post about citations and such. They're very important. Just just people if people look at your records and stuff like that, you don't want to just say, "Oh yeah, I saw it somewhere." You want to show that this is where it came from. You have actual documented proof. Um, so the way the library edition of Ancestry works is that it's not on your personal account if you make an account, regardless if it's free or premium. Um, what they give you the option to is that you can send whatever documents you find um, to your email, and then through that you could, or you could just cross-reference. You just make notes of what you find there. It's like, oh, that's that, and then you can go to your own personal account and like try and look up the same thing and make sure it's the right thing. But either way, you have the option of viewing whatever documents there are. So we're gonna go back and just like look at like I searched him, so we're gonna keep going, looking at some other records. I know for a fact this 1911 England census is him. I lied. Did I? No, I don't think this is him. No, that's not him. I'm sorry. The census in England actually is a little different than ours. Just because the years, like ours is every 10 years on the zero, 1940, 1950, etc. Um, they have it happens to be in 1911. It's a little odd number, but just gonna scroll down. A lot of these are passenger cruises. He is actually listed many times on these different things. Some are the same, some are different. These are just immigration records, but he traveled constantly while working for years on this one specific ship, um, and it just comes up so often because it's every single time it's documented that he went into this ship. He was on this ship and he went left from Liverpool and then he arrived in New York and he was just working, but he was employed on the ship, so he still had to be documented. Um, but let's look. I'm actually what I wanted to show you is my family tree. When I, 'cause like I said, I recommend everyone you sign up for an Ancestry account. This is not the only database. This is just the most popular one. There are others. There are others that are completely free, like Family Search and stuff, which I will eventually uh, go over that. It's very similar, just kind of looks a little different. Um, but a lot of the records are the same. So you'll have like the same family tree it's set up. Just the records are the same. And usually it's linked to like things like the same kind of searches and such. But so I'm going to go into my tree. There's like the bar. This is on a personal account. So when you sign up and you log on your own account, you can start a family tree on here. And it's just a matter of inputting information. So you start with yourself, and then you move on from your parents, and then you move on from their parents, your grandparents, and their great grandparents, and their great great grandparents. It's all very basic in terms of how it flows. And you can move it around if it's big. Um, there's features in how it change how it looks. Like instead of like you can have it like go up. So there's me, Robert Lee Voiles. That's my name. My siblings, my brothers, my older brothers, and then my parents, their siblings. It just this shows everyone on the family tree, the siblings and all. But I usually have it at this because you're looking for direct lineage usually. So I'm gonna go back to my great grandfather, the one I did the most research on. And what you can do is once you set up the profiles for people on your family tree, you just add just like your parents and then their parents. There's always slots for to fill. Um, and then this is like their profile page. So I have found all these documents on him through the ancestry search. Um, and what you do is when you find a document, you can link it to when you go in the search, you link it. If you like know this is him or someone in your family, like, oh, this is exactly this person. I know exactly this is his siblings, this is her parents. Um, you have the option to match it to the profile and say this is them. Connect this document to them, and it pops up on there. So when you go to the profile page, all of the documents are listed over here. So you see, I have a lot of these passenger and cruise lists from Ellis Island and such, New York State Census, naturalization records, find a grave. I know where he's buried. He's buried out in Queens. Um, Social Security Index, many different records, like I said. It and it kind of forms a nice timeline. You link all the documents, it forms a timeline, says, you know, through census records and such, birth of siblings, where they lived, what they did, any kind of records. It just shows like he lived here in Queens in 1930. Birth of daughter Elizabeth Ellen Shacklady, that's my grandmother. But yeah, and these are just on these sources just are linked, but they necessarily didn't have like a date attached to it um, in the timeline. It's not linked in a timeline. Like I said, it shows family over here. His parents, William Webster Shacklady, Margaret Elizabeth Shacklady, Ellen Margaret Stevens, my great grandmother, and then their children, my two great uncles, my great aunt, and my grandmother. Um, so there's also another feature called hints. I'm going to go back to the family tree because he doesn't have any hints. So when you're looking at, oh, let's It's odd. Usually it pops up on the actual family tree. Oh, it's loading. That's why. Gotta wait for it to load. Because when you're looking at the family tree, here we go. These leaves, these little leaves. When you have a premium account, you can view all obviously these documents, but these are hints, and that Ancestry itself says, "Oh, look, we did our own search, and these documents might be, this might be the person in this document." Um, and you can go up top, and you'll see this little leaf up here. It says there's 20 hints. There's a lot of hints, obviously, because I tried doing a scatter shot of all my family records of just like everyone in my family. I really didn't have time to like sift through all of them. A lot of them I just have no clue if it's actually them. And that's a problem with sometimes with genealogical research, is just that you don't know uh, everything. Some families are completely well documented. With one specific family lineage line, I had someone in my family, I think it was like a second cousin or something, that literally researched my maternal grandfather's family line, Leroy Edwards, all the way back to the 1700s. I literally just got the documents, the family tree documents. It was all on paper because it was done like 20 something years ago, I think. Maybe like over 30 years ago. Uh, and it's obviously pre-internet documentation, old school, showing different paperwork, family tree, like on paper, which I'll show you. Charts, something I'm gonna post for you guys on the blog. So there's the ancestral charts, family tree chart. It's essentially what this is, the pedigree charts, where you would like you write your name. You're usually the first part. You're gonna always be the first person. When you start your family tree, you'll be in this first slot right here. And then you just write your name, and then you put all this information in, born place, such. Your parents, grandparents. This is the old school way of doing it, as opposed to having an online option to do it. It kind of saves some time. Because it's just one long tree. Instead, you'd have to have multiple papers if you want to go far back or even wider. Um, like it says, continue on chart at XYZ. Uh, it's a matter of labeling. Um, number one on this chart is the same person as number 7 on chart number 6. It can get a little messy if you do it on paper. So that is one of the good things about Ancestry, is that it allows you to do an electronic family tree, and it keeps it all in order, one place. Um, one of the genealogical standards when construction family trees is, if you look at, and the Ancestry does it kind of automatically, is that males always go, when you're looking at it this way, males always go on top, and then the females are on the bottom, like your fathers and grandfathers and such, always are on the north side, on the top side of it. Um, you the It's numbered usually. When you go, I'm going to show you where I usually get the pedigree charts from. See how it's numbered here. These are PDFs. I will post these PDFs on the next blog for the charts, because they can be, regardless of having an Ancestry account, you can just save this document on your computer and have it filled out. Just easier than having a physical copy, where in case you make a mistake or something like that. And you'll notice that they're numbered. So uh, aside from the first one, which is what you are, um, the numbers, even is always male, and odds are always female. So I like, for me, for example, I'm number one, and then moving on from there, my father would be two, my mother would be three, and then my paternal grandfather would be four, and paternal grandmother would be five, and it's just always goes like that, four, five, six, seven. That's just how it goes. That's just the standard that genealogical practices follow. So I will show these. I will put some of these documents on the blogs so you guys can have access to them. Another specific one I wanted to show you was the family group record sheet. This is like a snapshot of like a family tree, um, where it looks at one individual family unit, and then it's kind of the same practice, usually, in terms of filling out the information, like husband, wife. It's just a coupling. It's a family unit. So like if I was researching my grandfather, so I would fill out two of these, because I would put uh, him as a child, his family unit that he grew up with. So I'll put his father and his mother, and then him and his siblings, and then I would fill out one where he was the husband, and his wife, and then his children. So that's just usually how it's done. Filling out two of those. So this is another one um, that I will post for you guys. Uh, so let me go back to like a search. So another document like that you can search through is census. Census is probably one of the most popular kind of documents to like. It gives like the most information um, in a time. Um, so I will look up my great grandfather again. Birth year is 1899. Um, his father, just put in some more information and keep it specific. His father was William. Let's just do William because Webster didn't really show up on a lot of documents. Um, Spouse is Ellen Margaret. Oh gosh, my family tree is so convoluted too because all these English people just constantly switch names back and forth. There's Williams, there's Edwards, there's Margarets, there's Ellens, there's Elizabeths, all the same names, and it's so complicated to keep them all straight. Male, he's male, so just another narrower thing. See, here's his 1911 census. We'll look at the United States one though. So let's look at the actual census record. What's great about these is that they highlight the one if it's selected, it'll highlight where it is, so you don't have to like squint and try and look and zoom in. This is how you zoom in on the little bar on the right. Drag it, click and drag to move it. So this is him, William Shacklady. Um, what's great is that sometimes if you're really good with cursive, you can read the handwriting really well. Other times, like me, I've kind of grown up in a digital age. I know cursive, but sometimes it's just chicken scratch to me. Um, so it shows census record. The different censuses sometimes include different information. Not everything was always the same every single census. Sometimes they'll ask for specific information. Other times it'll just be completely dropped in the next census, and then they'll add something in another one. So you have here place of abode. Um, Up top, they'll show all that information of location, like Queens County. Township is south. I think that's Ozone Park. Um, Block number. I assume that's a 3. Not a, maybe it's E. I guess. I guess letters are blocks too. Um, this is all the enumeration district, supervisor's district, sheet number 12B of that census record. Um, when it was done, May 6th of 1930. So, just some information that you can find on here is sex, the race, um, marital condition, like married, single. Age at first marriage, 26 and 23. Um, Birthplace, even shows like where your parents are born. See, that's like something that's not necessarily on like current censuses and such. Um, like mother tongue, native tongue. A lot of information can be found in census. They're great. And what's interesting about censuses is that because of the information that's found in census, is that they are not public record until X amount of time. I believe it's 70. It could be 70 something years. The 1950 census has yet to be released for public viewing. Like this is the latest census is 1940 that you can view. 1950, I think, comes out in 2 years. I believe that is like the release pattern that they do. So that would be 70 something years from when they're able to release it. Uh, so so that's the census record. Um, so what you want to do is, it's, like I said, the ancestry record shows a lot of the information, like their job, that kind of thing. When they immigrated, he finally moved in 1928 to New York, where they lived. Um, a map of home. You can view a map. Shows you where the street is. Look, that's where he was. That's where he lived. Um, in 1930, yeah, that's where he lived. Yeah, it's a lot of information. But I lost my place. Yeah. He was a bank clerk. It shows your job, job and such. Children. Census records are great because it shows everyone in the family. And a good practice for census is like, you always want to look at, if you don't know when you're looking at information, you don't know necessarily everything, and you're like, oh, could this be them in the census? And you're trying to gather as much information from these records. It's best to look at the pages before and after on the census record. Like so, like this is one page, so it's best to like be able to look at. So this is page 21 of 43. So when you could look at page 20 and 22 because you don't know if maybe they're just on the next page or something like that. Because like I said, it's the way the censuses are organized is by where they live. Um, you don't know if like it cuts off like they're up top here, so you don't his father could be on the next page before it. Just just it's very common for people to live in family like so. You got Margaret Elizabeth Shack lady, William. See that's my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, William, Sydney. These are like head of household. Sydney is my great great uncle, my great grandfather's brother. John, Henry. Um, like I said, like this is on the page before. Um, William is his father, the head of household. I think that's really interesting that she is the first one. Usually they would put the head of household as the first one marking for the family line. Um, but yeah, so like his parents lived um, right next to them, right by them, and with their other children. Um, he was the oldest out of all of them. But yeah, so like that's a good idea when looking at census records, is to make sure that uh, you when you're just kind of like overviewing all the information, you check it all. Um, like I said, you can send the documents. You just put your email and stuff, and they'll send you the document. What's also great is with Ancestry is that they'll suggest records, like that are very similar to it, that have same names. So like right here, the 1940 federal census, the next year, it's listed as William Shocklady instead of Shacklady. It is William Shacklady. This is my great grandfather. When you view it, there's sometimes transcription errors, just based on what the people that work in Ancestry, um, or even the people that work at the census. Um, you can't really. It's so hard to see that if that's Shack or Shack, if that's an O or A. I can see where that would be an O, because the person may have either heard it as Shock Lady because he's British, so Shock Lady, I'm Shock Lady, and he had according to my mother and grandmother, he had his English accent all throughout his life. He never lost it, even though he moved here fairly young. Um, but yeah, so it's transcription error. But it is him with the 1940 census. Um, all the same people, even though the name is wrong. Um, so that's something you always want to look, even like, oh, that's not their name. Obviously this is not the right record. You should always check. Just always look. You want to confirm. You want to cross-reference. Cross-referencing is very important when it comes to research. You want to make sure that the same information can be found elsewhere. I mean, you can. I know this is him because I know that's his name. This is the 1930 census. I know that's his name. I know he was born in England. I know he lived in Queens. I know his wife's name was Ellen. I know he was a bank clerk. Like, this is information I found out from my grandmother, obviously. Um, so, and the same could be said for the 1941 is, it has all the same family members on there. Ellen Margaret, it's like, oh, obviously this is a transcription error. No family would literally have the same exact family members, just happen to, a different family with the same different last name, but all the same first names. Very odd. But just and so the suggested records is great. Not everything is correct. Not everything is exactly. It's just someone with a similar name. Um, But another kind of record is find a grave index, which is great. It's another. It gives information. Graves have information. You can call grave cemeteries, and you can see what information they actually have on file of people buried there. He's buried in Flushing Cemetery. So this is a specific website, Find a Grave, and it shows you if someone has taken a picture, it's documented. This is his gravestone. Um, a little plaque on the ground. William Edward and Ellen Margaret. This is their. It shows birth and death. Sometimes it can be It can give the actual birth date, or sometimes it's just the year that you can go off of. Uh, but um, it's just a matter of what information you can collect. Sometimes, like I said, I've called the cemetery and I've asked them. I was like, I you know what information do you have on there, and they gave it to me. They'll give you the grave location, the record of the person. It's a good resource. Find a grave. Uh, Registration cards. Ignore that. um, but yeah, so we'll go back to the search. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what Ancestry is about. There's way, way, way more involved, but be here all day. So I'm kind of releasing it in tidbits. Um, ooh, sure that doesn't pop up anymore. Excuse me. Releasing it in tidbits. Just so you're not overwhelmed. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and make a 2 hour long video just searching for things. This is just kind of like an introduction into Ancestry. I will definitely go more in depth with other databases as well. Um, and when I go over, I'll make more videos talking about different records, showing different records. Um, birth and marriage and uh, death certificates. Um, you have these indexes here and stuff like that, like Social Security Index, which shows like, when people usually die and such. Um, I'm going to show one more. See the Find a Grave Index. That's where he died in 1978. Registration of Marriage Index. This is uh, he married my great grandmother. Something as basic as this. See, this isn't necessarily highlighted, but you can see. I can find it right here. Where it was is obviously in alphabetical order. Shack Lady, right here. William Edward. Oop, kind of scan out before. Like I said, the suggested records on the side. Yeah, but so when you just search for things, um, you want to be as specific as possible. Any kind of genealogical research, you want to get as much information as possible so you can know what's what. So when you're looking at a specific document, you can say, "Oh, I know this is the birth date, and this list as this person's name. Oh, it's the same birth date. This could be them, or where they lived. You want to get a list of that, by any means. The idea is to have corroborating evidence to show that there's not really, sometimes there is outlier information. It's like, oh, this is the only thing that has this information. Um, it could very well likely be them. But you always want to have other documentation to show that it's like, oh, this is definitely it because this connects to that. It has their birthday here. Oh, it says that they lived here, so that's probably them because it shows they live with this person and this person was in this document as well. Um, so you want to gather as much information as you can on anyone that you're trying to research. Um, you kind of move in steps. You start from the bottom. You start from yourself and you move up. You go to your parents. You get as much information about them from them, about other family members, and then you move to your grandparents. If they're still around or if you have any documentation of them. Um, that's why it's important to talk to your family. I interviewed my grandmother. I always ask her about when what was it like when she grew up. She grew up in the Depression. She grew up during World War II. She was born in the 30s. I would constantly ask. I'm a history person, so I would constantly ask her, like, "What was life like? Was it really like what it's like in the textbooks?" And she would say, "Yeah, like that's exactly what it was. We rationed. We, didn't eat this on this day or whatever. We weren't waiting on bread lines, but it wasn't exactly luxury for people. Um, her specifically. But you want to get as much information. Do family interviews. That's something I'll talk about in the blog. Family interviews where you just ask questions, just find out about as much information as you can, as much documented information that you know for a fact, uh, birth dates and such. That's pretty much a lot of very important information. Is names, full names, birthdays, um, any kind of location of where they lived, and just family relations. Um, Birthdays, death days is also super important if they are dead. Um, and just any family relations. That's the best kind of corroborating evidence that you can find. And then you just sift through the records. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to go through all these records. For that, I mentioned in the beginning, like the project I worked on was a biography of my grandfather. It was a 4 month. It was a 4 month sojourn from beginning to end. I barely knew anything about him. I didn't know he served in World War One. I literally, when I had to do assignments for it, I had to do an interview, and I asked my grandmother a lot of questions about him, and found out that he served in World War One. Found out that she had medals that he had from World War One, um, and that here I'm going to actually show you an example of something. Um, he had these medals, and I I needed to source these medals. Like, like I said I had these medals in in my biography, and I had, you have to provide documentation for it. Um, and so I was trying to search for any kind of documentation on the medals that would be online, like some sort of registry. I had the name of the medals, like I knew they were like the Merchant Marine medals. Um, um, South African Medical Corps was for one of them. Um, and I found the registry for the UK because it was World War One. He served in the British Army, and it took me. His name was listed under one of these, and this is the record. I was like, oh, this can't be him because it says he was born in 1889, and I was like, what's Ride? I was like, he wasn't born in Ride. Um, 1889. So I went to the website. I'm looking at it and stuff. A lot of this shows source sometimes to different websites, and you just follow the links. Um, there's a medal card for the British, the National Archives of Great Britain, of the United Kingdom. I'm sorry. And it shows you all this information. So I showed you when we're on here. It says it's 1889. That's the birth date. On this, on the National Archives records, it's 1899. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. He was born in 1899. Why did it say 1889 on Ancestry? The National Archives actually originally had it as 1889. I viewed, um, what you can preview the image right here. It's watermarked because they want you to purchase it. Obviously, they're not handing it out for free apparently. Um, I viewed it and I was very, I'm trying to analyze it and stuff like that, and then I'm looking at this. I'm like, it has almost all of his information on there. It's his name. The number was the same, and I was like, this is him. I was like, but why would they list it as 1899? I'm trying to look at the birth date. It says date of birth, and obviously there's a watermark. So without actually, like, purchasing it, I contacted them and I said, this very well could be 1899, and it could have been a transcription error because that happens all the time. So I actually contacted them and I said, listen, this looks to be like my great grandfather. On the birth date, it says 1889, but it looks like it could be 1899. Is it possible for like someone to like double check that? And they said they did, and they said I was correct, and so they corrected it. So I actually corrected a record for the National Archives at the UK a few months ago, but apparently Ancestry has not corrected it. So I'm not too worried about it because I'm the only. Maybe I'll contact them about changing it. You can report things that are different, and it gives you that option to. Um, it gives you that option to kind of like say like, oh, for that shock lady thing, I did I you can make notes saying that it could also be this, it could be and it lists like, what's the reason for the error, and it said transcription is one of them, whatever other reasons that they listed. um but yeah, so that's pretty much the basics of like kind of just like searching through stuff. There's, like I said, there's different records. Military is one of them. um Naturalization records, draft cards. You still have to fill out draft cards. He lived here. He wasn't a citizen. I don't know when. I forgot when he became a citizen, but but yes, lots of different kinds of records that I will go into eventually in the uh, blog post. Um, but that's pretty much what I have for today. Um, like I said, I'll make more videos about going into this, analyzing the records more. I'll look at my family tree. Let's see, uh, kind of as an example. Um, see how far you can get. This was the farthest I got. Was this generation? Was, let's see, me, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents, great great grandparents. So third great grandparents. That's as far as I can get. Pretty much the only information, like with stuff like that, is a name and where they're born. Uh, that's approximately, sometimes there's this specifically Anton Stevens. I actually have photographs of my great great grandfather, Henry Anton Stevens. Um, but like a lot of, the further back you go, the harder it is, usually to find corroborating evidence for anything. Um, just because there's usually a lack, in today's world, there's so much documentation now. Like everyone, on the internet and stuff like that, everyone takes pictures, and it's just so much more accessible to keep things recorded. Unlike back then, it's like you were lucky to get a picture in the late 1800s, uh, or have a letter that survived. You know, a lot of that stuff is just so, I don't want to say ephemeral, because obviously some of it does have, like, meaning beyond the current time, but it just doesn't survive. Or it's so hard to track down. Um, and that's why when you're doing genealogical research, it's best to get a start on it quick. Uh, Talk to as many people as you can, gather as much information as you can, because usually it's something that other people can build on. If, down the line, generation or two down the line, you got another person in your family that wants to do research. You have that research. Like I said, I was just handed paperwork from my grandmother. Um, that someone on her husband's side, my grandfather's side, did genealogical research, and it's like I said, it reached all the way back to the 1700s. Um, and I was astonished that they did that without the internet. Um, and I wish I had that before I did my profile, my research. My research, it would have been a lot easier for my homework assignment. But yes, so I'm gonna recommend everyone go to ancestry.com, sign up for a free account. There's no harm in having a free account. Start your family tree. Put as much information that you know to be true, that you can actually document, that you have evidence for. It doesn't help if you're just saying, "Oh my, I think my grandma said lived there." That's only good when you're like kind of looking through records. It's not good to actually put down as information just yet. Um, but if you have foolproof evidence of something, obviously record it. Very important. Um, but yeah, so that's it for today. I will continue to post stuff about genealogical research. Like I said, any questions can be directed to me by email. R Voiles, my last name, V as in Victor, Oyles at lindenhurstlibrary.org. Um, when the library opens back up, if anyone is interested, I'm usually there in the evenings, throughout the week. You can come find me. I'm definitely, like, this is something I'm more specialized in. If anyone ever wants help in terms of research, I'm more than happy to sit there with them and help them out. I can't do it for them, but I can certainly point you in the right direction. I can get you started. Um, I'm I'm going to continue to release information. Like, it's a slow trickle. I don't want to overwhelm people. But like I said, if anyone wants to contact me, if they, they kind of speed through it and like, okay, what's next? What's next? I'd be happy to share what I know. I am not a genealogist. I just want to make that clear. I just know how to do genealogical research. From one amateur to another, I think that's good. There are genealogists available. You can hire an actual genealogist if you are hardcore serious about research and you kind of don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. Um, and that's always a route you can go. But there's a lot of fun to be had doing it yourself. I certainly had fun doing it. Um, but yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna kind of recap a lot of this in the next blog post, put some links in to stuff that we went over, and uh, just kind of continue on from there. We'll definitely gonna revisit Ancestry. I thought a video would be best to just kind of show you what Ancestry looked like, um, just how the search process worked. So, but yeah, that's about it for today. I'm going to sign off, and I look forward to sharing what more information I have on genealogical research. Have a good day, everyone.